Hey y'all, you are rocking with the Locked and Loaded RN. If you're new to my channel, bienvenidos. If you're one of my awesome subscribers, welcome back. Y'all, there's a topic that I want to talk to you guys about, and it's about being Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino. So it actually has been on my mind to talk about this for a while, but yesterday I had a run-in with it, so it actually confirmed my desire to talk about it. So many times, as I told y'all before, I got hired for the job that I have because of me being able to speak Spanish. So a lot of times when I go into my patients' homes and they're Spanish speaking only, and they, and I'm like, oh no, they'll be like calling their child or their family on the phone to translate for them. And I'll be like, listen, it's okay. If you only speak Spanish, that's okay. We could do Spanish. And I start speaking in Spanish. And they're like, oh, I thought you were black. And I'll be like, I am black. I am black. And they're like, I've heard that statement all of my life growing up, even from like high school, middle school. Before I had my hair locked and I had my natural hair, my hair was long. And I remember comments would be made like, oh, your hair is so long. I forgot you're not black. Whatever that means, because black people have good hair, great hair. But they would say, oh, I forgot you're not black. And I would be like, I am black. They'll be like, no, you're Spanish. So I wanted to touch on this topic because I wanted to break down what Afro-Latina or Latino person is, right? And how they are still very much black. So one thing is your race. Whenever you go to fill out an application or something that asks about your race, you see that it will say black, white, Asian. Or as far as I know, and I think maybe like, there's another thing like Native American, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. Then you'll see a part that says ethnicity. And that's where you will see Hispanic and other things as well. So in my case, and in many other people's cases, like for example, Amara La Negra, when she came out on Love and Hip Hop, everyone was doing the same thing. She wants to be black, or she's not black, or it was a big thing. She's imitating black people with her afro. When you find a black person that's from a Spanish speaking place, they are still black. Their culture or their ethnicity is Hispanic, right? Because the food they eat, the language they speak will be based on that Hispanic country that they're born in or grew up in. However, their race will still be black. They're still of African descent. So I'm gonna give you an example. This is an example that I always give people. Let's say a Nigerian mom and a Nigerian dad move to Mexico and they have their baby, right, in Mexico. So their baby on its birth certificate will technically be Mexican because the baby was born in Mexico. And the baby grows up in Mexico, goes to school in Mexico, and speaks fluent Spanish. All of a sudden, does that make that baby become Spanish? Or are they still black? They are black. They just happen to now know Mexican culture. Granted, now, in that example, they might still be eating Nigerian food, and they might learn the Nigerian dialect, I believe that's the word, because their parents might instill that in them as well, so they might end up learning both things. In my case, when you see a lot of black Panamanians, you have to keep in mind that Panama was a country that is a country that has the Panama Canal. At the time when they were building the Panama Canal, a lot of black people came from other Caribbean countries, Jamaica, Aruba, Bahamas, Barbados, Trinidad. From all of these different countries, they came to build a canal, and they were supposed to go back home. Unfortunately, people will be people, men will be men, A lot of them came and fell in love with Panamanian women. So they ended up staying. And some of them, unfortunately, and this is actually sad, just never went home. Like literally neglected their families back home. Started a new life, a new family in Panama, and never looked back. So Panama ended up being, especially a city called Colon, C-O-L-O-N. Colon used to be where all the black people were, and because that's like where the Panama Canal starts, and then it connects to a different part of Panama. So the Panama Canal starts in Colon, and that used to be where all the black people were. Still to this day, there are still a lot of black looking Panamanians like me in Colon. Panamanians also have an interesting thing about us, that those black Panamanians, when they speak English, their English actually kind of sounds like patois. Like they often get mistaken for Jamaicans. Growing up, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like that, because growing up, a lot of times people would say stuff like, oh, you know, when we were back home in Jamaica, to me, and I'll be like, oh, I'm not Jamaican, and they'll be like, oh, where are you from? And I'll be like, I'm Panamanian, and they'll say, oh, same thing. No, it's not the same thing. Don't disrespect me with the same thing. It's two different countries, two different cultures. Or I remember one time someone said to me growing up, Panamanians are just Jamaicans that speak Spanish. Again, incorrect. However, I do get what they're trying to say, because again, a lot of Jamaicans, but not only Jamaicans, it's other countries, Bajans, Aruba, all these different people came from other countries, and their culture got integrated with Panama's culture. So out of all of these Spanish countries, Panama is the most unique because they speak Spanish, but yet even how they prepare food is often more similar to Caribbean style, like Black Caribbean style, for how we prepare food and how we do things. Many people don't know because of, you know, it's kind of who makes something famous first. But the first reggaeton came from Panama. Why? Because you have these black Panamanians that know reggae but also know Spanish. But the word itself, at least from my understanding, was put on the map by Daddy Yankee. So a lot of times people think Puerto Rico started reggaeton, but they did not. It was Panama, because they got the influence from the Caribbean, and they also speak Spanish. So again, if you grew up like in places like New York, the Bronx, Brooklyn, where they grew up with a lot of Panamanians, they could tell you that when they speak Spanish perfect. When they speak English, it's like a patois. And so a lot of times, even when I meet Jamaicans and they're speaking in patois and they're like, oh, you don't know what I said, I'm like, oh, I know what you said. I very much know what you said. Now, there might be certain words or terminologies that is specific to your country that I don't know what that means, but I understood what you said. In any case, I just wanted to clarify that, right? Because Panama is not the only country that goes through that. Every single Spanish country just about that you could think of, especially in the Caribbean and Central America, have black people there. Some of them are black through slavery. Some of them are black from other reasons. But they have at least one part of the country that has black people there. It happens to be that people separate. So there normally is one specific area that if you want to see black people, you ask that, you know, the people from that country where the black people are, and it could tell you where they are, right? So Panama has the native, like the Indian looking Panamanians, the Spanish looking Panamanians, and then they have the black Panamanians. Every other country like Honduras, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, all of those countries have black looking people. And people will say, oh, I thought you were black. You guys see there's a video of someone that I post all the time that he's speaking Spanish and he's black. He's Dominican. And yet people are always like, oh, I thought you were black. What is he? You see him. He's black and he has locks. He's black. Again, Dominican Republic has the mixture because of being right there beside Haiti. So a lot of them have family that came from Haiti, grew up, had their kids in the DR, so the kids end up only knowing the DR. But that doesn't change the fact that they're still from Haitian parents or Haitian grandparents, but they just happen to know Dominican culture, Dominican language, Spanish. prepare the food Dominican style. But that didn't make them all of a sudden become Spanish. I hope that makes sense. Because I've heard this all of my life. And let me tell you, we could do a whole nother video about what it was like for me growing up. I always felt like a mixture of things, right? Because I felt like for Spanish people, I wasn't Spanish enough because I wasn't Spanish, I was black. So, you know, if I was speaking in Spanish, it'll be like, oh, she's trying to be Spanish. And it's like, no, I just happen to know Spanish. And you're talking about me. You're talking crap about me in front of me because you think I don't understand. So now I got to turn around and put you in your place in Spanish. And then for black people, a lot of times I didn't relate or understand because, again, it's a different culture. Like, you know, they'll be talking about, let's say, for example, fried chicken and Kool-Aid. I didn't grow up drinking Kool-Aid. And I don't really eat fried chicken like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really my thing. And I remember, like, when I went to, when I was living on campus in college, my roommate and I went shopping to, like, cook food together. And we were gonna fry chicken and make, like, Velveeta, because we didn't really know how to cook like that back then. So we're there grabbing the ingredients, and then she said something about grabbing flour. And I was like, what are you getting flour for? And she was like, the chicken, girl. I'm like, what are you about to do with flour and chicken? So we start going back and forth on how you fry chicken. And a random lady, she was Hispanic. We were like, let's ask her. And she was like, if you're doing it the African-American way, you dip it in flour and you fry it. If you're doing it the Hispanic way, a lot of times we just fry it or put it in a sauce. You know, we don't really put flour in it. And we're both like, see? And then she's like, oh, girl, I keep forgetting that you're not black. And I'm like, I am black. But again, you know, it's just a lot of the stuff is different. I remember even when people were talking about the Wiz, and I'm like, I never saw the Wiz. And they'll turn around like, oh, it's Charlene. You know she not black. And if you know me, I'm non-apologetically black. Like, I love being black. So, but it's just a lot of things that I just didn't grow up that way. Like, I didn't grow up in a certain, you know, that just wasn't my thing. But at the same time, by going to school and learning about people, I love it. I love what I learned and what I saw. It's just not how I grew up, so I couldn't relate to those things, you know. But in any case, this video is long enough, so I'm gonna post this. I am gonna do another video on colorism because I do think that that's another topic that I would like to touch on. But comment below if you're an Afro-Latina. Put your flag down there. Let me know how it feels or what your experience was growing up being Afro-Latina, whether it's in your country or whether it's here in the United States. I want to know. And if you're not an Afro-Latina, you have questions, comment below and let me know what your questions are.